Hey, if you come in class a little late, there's always seats down here in the front, and we like to fill the front area up also. So, hey, so let me make just a couple announcements as we get going. First off, I want to introduce you to somebody who you all, many of you, we've gotten an email from. This is Yuli Prieto from.
Thank you. Gracias.
Y trato de no cambiar a español.
So I need to speak in English.
No, ya sí, claro.
Okay.
Ya. Siempre cuando estoy hablando con Yuli, hablamos en español, pero ya está. Okay. So anyway, listen. So you're here for. Why are you? Hey, yo, hang on. We're starting. What do people need to know about? So Julie lives you used to live in Bogota.
Yeah, but now I'm living in Armenia, which is a small city in Colombia as well, in the coffee axis country.
And Julie is the course assistant for everything related to the class. So a lot of people think that if they, instead of sending you the email at the staff email, they'll get a better response or a more important response if they send it to me. Can you explain why that's a bad idea?
Because you never answer emails.
Not because I don't want to.
Yeah, you can't. Sometimes.
But
busy.
How many people do you answer?
Per day?
No, how many people do you not answer ever?
No, I answer every email that is in the staff email.
And if it's an important email that comes to the staff email, and I don't respond to it, what do you do?
I will WhatsApp you or give you a phone call because it's really important, even if it's late night or so.
Okay, so that's all you need to hear, right? So this is who is at the other end of the staff email, and she arrived yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
From Colombia, and she's here for a week, and we'll see you later today because you're going to be talking.
Just one last thing.
Yep.
Please read the syllabus. I think it's one thing important for you during this class. Everything you ask me and is in the syllabus, I will ask you to read the syllabus. So please read the syllabus. Thank you.
To save you from having to say that. Hey, also, Nish, are you? Yeah. And I want to introduce you just a little by little. We'll introduce you to different people in the class. This is Darniesha, and Darniesha is the lead on the stream team.
Yeah, I'm doing my best.
And how long have you been working with Switch 118?
It's been, since I was a student, it was, I think, 7 semesters, so that's like 3.5 years, and now it's been like, this is the 4th or 5th year?
Yep.
That sounds about right.
Yep, and like Joy, you're now a full-time employee.
Yep.
As of today.
As of today, officially.
And
oh, thank you.
And you are, and so what are you responsible for, quickly, so they know?
So I am, in Social 19, I'm responsible for all the cameras that you see around here. I have some hands in the volunteer pool, I think, in helping that get together. And then for A World in Conversation, I am a part of the intern team. So when you guys start your dialogues this semester, you might see me a couple times interning dialogues.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yo, thanks. I wanted to make sure everyone got a face to who makes all this happen. Yeah, cool. And you were a film and video major.
Yes, I was. I don't know how I ended up here, but I'm here.
Awesome, man. Yo, thanks. Yeah. Okay, so here's what we're going to do today. First off, remember, no laptops and put your phones away. So we'll announce. Hey, I was actually going to go in a direction where I wanted to follow up from the last class, but I didn't get to it, and so no, hang on. I wanted to just pick up where we left off last class because Sam의 up here asked what I thought was a really interesting question, and basically what Sam의 asked was like, listen, so as a white person, I'm not, or as a we could say a majoritized person, because men run into this, the straight people run into it, able-bodied people run into it. People run into this question of like, what's the lane I'm supposed to be in when I am responding and interacting with people? Like, what's my lane? Like, what am I supposed to do? And how do I know when I'm stepping out of my lane? How do I know if I'm saying something that is going to ruffle someone's feathers, or one thing after another, right? And we don't often know. And sometimes what happens is the lane is really narrow, and nobody knows where the edge, where the curbs are. And the problem is everybody keeps changing the curbs. So, if I say, if I want to look at like, do I say handicapped people or disabled people, right? So I have friends who are handicapped who say like, hey, just say handicapped. And I have friends who are disabled and say, hey, just use disabled. You don't have to use handicapped, it's fine. And it just goes back and forth. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I can use both. And then I respond to somebody, I refer to someone as handicapped, and they get pissed off. And I'm like, well, hang on, I just learned from my handicapped friend that's like that's good to use that word. And then another time I use disabled and someone is pissed off at that. They're like, no, I'm non-able-bodied or something, some new word that comes up. And I'm like, shit, like, I don't know this. Where am I going to learn this? And every time I learn it, people keep changing the rules. And so this is part of something that we need to deal with, and we're going to talk about, and I was going to talk about that today. However, we have two people in town who you will include, Julie is one, and somebody else, who last night I turned the corner and said, no, we're going to talk about something else. And the thing we're going to talk about is it's a class I'm calling Not Fun and Games. And what I want to talk about is the breakdown into civil war in a society. And we are, this class, we go micro, we go macro, we do U.S. issues, we do global issues. We're going to talk about a lot of things. Today we're kind of going to talk about both in a certain sense. But I just feel this is a big issue. This is an important issue. And so it's not the kind of thing I expect you to remember all of the things that we talk about today, but I expect you to have a feeling about something and be able to say, okay, I'm going to tune into this. And so I want to first talk about the United States, and then we're going to talk about Colombia, and then we're going to talk about Iraq, and then our two guests are going. I'm going to have a conversation with them. Okay, so there's a woman who wrote. I mean, a lot of people are talking about this, right? When I was in grad school, one of my areas of focus was social movements and revolutions, meaning that studying for my PhD, I studied the cause and the outcome of social revolutions around the world. People are still thinking about this, and people are thinking about civil war. And how is it that a country divides and falls apart into civil war? And we might think there's like probably 20 or 30 different factors and forces, and they all play a role. But the truth is, people who study these kinds of things, like sociology of civil war, you look at lots of different civil wars, you compare and contrast, and then you see what are the factors that are most dominant or most salient in some example like this, say with civil wars. And so there's a woman who just wrote a book on this. Her name's Barbara Walter, and the title is How Civil Wars Start and How to Stop Them. And when I read something about this book last summer, I went to myself, I said, self, holy shit. Holy shit. And I couldn't, that's the only two words that came into my mind were holy shit. And I want to talk about that today. I want to talk to you about how it is that I got to those two words. And because it matters to our futures in a big way. So they studied 200 armed conflicts since in the post-World War II period, and they found two highly predictive factors that correlate with the likelihood of a civil war in a society. And the first one is what they call anocracy. And this is the idea. So follow me, right? Remember, you're not taking notes in here. You just got to follow me. Follow the basic idea. A society that is highly democratic is unlikely to fall into a state of civil unrest. Why? Because lots of people are participating in that society. So places like Denmark and Sweden and New Zealand and Canada, all the Scandinavian countries, they're really down here. The U.S., so they're down here, okay? Then you have the autocratic societies. They're unlikely to split apart. And the reason they're unlikely to split apart is because there's no room for people to protest. So countries like North Korea, countries like Saudi Arabia, yes, Saudis, in here. Yeah, your country is right here, not down there. But I don't have to tell you that. The Emirates would be down here. The Central African Republic, Chad, these are a lot of societies down here. It's like, yeah, there's not a lot of movement. That doesn't mean inherently it's a bad thing. Because democracy, meaning people having a voice in what's happening in society, isn't necessarily a good thing. It doesn't really matter. Why? Because most people don't ever express their opinions anyway. Most people are sheep day in and day out. So it doesn't matter. Does it matter? Would it matter to any of you really in your moment-to-moment, day-to-day reality if the United States was looking at what you're doing on your cell phone at every moment? No, because what are you doing? You're watching fucking TikTok videos. You know what I mean? So, like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. You're not doing anything. You're not fomenting. Did I say fuck? That's my F-bomb for the week, all right? I didn't drop one last class, right? Okay, I'm good. All right, that's my one. Okay, it's for the 2 weeks, right? I won't drop another one. Did I offend anyway? Bro, did I offend you? The F-bomb? We're all good? All right, man. I try not to do that. All right. TikTok videos. Because, like, you're not doing anything. Like, you're not trying to undermine the government and overthrow the government. So whatever. This is what Saudis would say. This is what North Koreans would say. Like, yeah, well, listen, we're living a good life, man. I don't care if my government's watching me. Who cares? Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So, anocracy. Here's the deal. But societies who are in the middle, who have a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and these societies are much more highly susceptible to breakdown from within. Why? Because groups in these societies have space to get more power and to take power away from other people. And so they're going to start to fight, and they're going to mobilize, and they're going to do what they can do to get more power for themselves. And so you're going to start to see these political groups and eventually even militia groups and so on, and they're going to do this. The United States used to be here, by the way. We used to be at the level of 9 and 10. We moved down to 5. So it's like you go plus 10 or minus 10. And in the middle, 0 is really in the middle. And we got down to plus 5. We've now moved up another step, but we're down here somewhere. And the concern is we're going to keep moving down here, meaning that we're much more susceptible. But I'm going to talk about this in a second. The second factor is balkanization, meaning people dividing up into groups based on ethnicity, culture, religion, and race. Not about ideology. Ideology, you can change your ideology. But on these other issues, the idea... Hey, by the way, I got to say something. You have to... Is that the attendance sheet?
That's just my script.
Oh, all right, dude, sorry. Keep the attendance sheets going. Don't sign anybody else in. If you sign somebody else in, that is actually a... Yeah, it's a felony offense. Yeah. Yeah, it's a felony. Yeah, don't do that, right? Penn State Judicial Affairs Office doesn't like that stuff. And you're all going to die, and your friends have already started partying because they're watching the game, or they're pre-gaming, right? Some of you probably pre-gamed, and you're here after pre-gaming, and you're going like, oh, damn, I should have stopped at the bathroom before I sat in class. Like, oh my God, I got to hold it the whole time. Whatever it is, right? But the issue is, don't sign anybody else in. Okay? So what goes on is like we see a rise in balkanization of groupings of people based on religion, race, and ethnicity. And so people start to really form identity around these groups and push their groups forward. And they think it's really their group and what they believe is the most important thing, and they want to change and convert everybody else to believe in what they believe in. And everybody thinks they're right. You know what I mean? Just like everyone who's upset about abortion. And like, oh, I can't believe the Supreme Court just struck down Roe v. Wade. And like, this is the most horrible thing in the world. Like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Right? But you don't stop and think that for nearly 50 years, there were other people over here who thought that abortion is killing a human being. And in the United States, we are sanctioning killing a human being. And every day they wake up with this idea that every abortion that's happening in the United States is the murder of a human being. And they're living with that. And they believe that, and they believe it strongly. And so what are they supposed to do? So now they've been sitting with that for 50 years. And I'm not talking about the right to anybody's body. I already mentioned that last class. It's not about this. This is just about believing you're right. So if you're down there, you think, how could this possibly be that we could strip this away from women? And down in here, you're saying, oh, finally, I've been sitting with this for so long, and now, finally, we're going to have a law on the book to stop this atrocity. And so when you're down there, you don't think about these people. And when you're down here, you don't think about those people because everybody thinks they're right. And that's when balkanization really gets going in this way. Okay? So the only way, then, the best way to get power when this starts to happen, the way you get power is you destroy the government that exists. You want to weaken the courts. You want to weaken the education system. You want to weaken the political system. You want to weaken business. You need to take power from all these things. And you want to get people to distrust all of those things. Because if you get people in society to distrust those things, then you and your group, who you believe is right, can step in and take power. And that's what happens in civil wars. Now, you don't have to be a rocket. If you're paying attention at all, you will know that the institutions that I just laid out are weaker at this stage in reality than they have been for 200 years. Trusting the courts, trusting schools, trusting politicians, trusting business, trusting anything. It's like people fomenting distrust. The entire Donald Trump campaign, more than anything, is about that. Fomenting that distrust. You can't even trust voting. You can't trust anything. Nothing. Right? And so, and the Democrats and the liberals do it in a different way. So, when I look at this idea right here, this is the holy shit moment that I'm talking about. Like, we, in the United States, are sitting on the edge of something that it's a precipice upon which we may not come back. And civil war is real. It's not fun, my friends, as you're going to hear from our guests today. It is not fun. And what I'm experiencing is a lot of folks who are just saying, yeah, what we need to do right now is we just need to go to war here, and we need to let the two sides battle it out. And I'm like, you motherfucker, what? You ever experienced a civil war? Do you have any idea what this is like? Are you serious? So we had political pundits and politicians calling we might have to just have a civil war after different things have happened. The most recent one was when Trump's place in Florida got raided by the FBI. And some people are just like, okay, this is it. Get your guns ready. Let's make it happen. And before that, it was Dems calling for this. So wherever you want to go, that's the moment, okay? So I want to just point out a couple things to you. I'm going to walk us through a few things, and then we are going to invite our guests up. So go to the next slide. So look, what happens in a civil war is that the balkanization happens. People divide. By the way, hang on. Are we like, have I gotten your attention at all? Like, do I have your attention? That we're actually in kind of dangerous times? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is, like, you want to pay attention. And And we hang on. Or you don't want to pay attention. Listen, man, Penn State's playing at 8 o'clock. Go have fun. If you like football, enjoy it. It's all good. But what happens in these moments, and what happens with every single collapse of a society, is it happens like this. Just like that. And you look around and you go, oh shit, how did that happen? Well, you won't have to look around and say, if it happens here, and there are a lot of folks, really smart people, who think, yeah, this is very highly likely. And you're not going to have to wonder, because I just said it. I'm laying it out. I'm laying out what their thinking is. So look, you're in Black Lives Matter. There's a whole movement. And it's about social justice. And we're finally going to get justice. And we're going to get justice for black and brown people in particular. Victims of a racist, conspiratorial institution of all of life, right? The U.S. is a racist society. The police are racist. It's a power system. It's white supremacy. We're going to find it. We got to take this down, and we got to build a society based on social justice. Okay, right? So it's like, all right, that's cool. Makes sense. I support that. I mean, I support like social justice, equality, stand up to discrimination. That's why I do what I do. It's what I've been doing. Well, I've been doing what I do for 30 years. But what happens is you turn that heat up, and that heat's going to get a response. When that heat gets a response, this is the balkanization. This grows, gets hotter and hotter, but as this grows, something starts to boil over down here because other people are going to respond. And folks here are just thinking, we're standing up to the powers that be. But the powers that be it's not really clear what and who they are. So go to the next one. So then we're going to have a police response. Okay, police response. Going to have that because you got to protect society, And by the way, I should add that the group of people most against defunding the police in the United States. Wait, it goes this way, right? It's all, the whole row got it? Good? Yeah? Yeah, hang on, man. You guys didn't get it? Hey, listen, man. Wait. Yeah, you'll get it. You came in late, right, bro? Yeah, you'll get it. Wait, does everyone understand, right? Just keep it going back and forth down the row. You guys will get it. Make sure you get it after class, okay? Back and forth down the row. And if you get to the end, never pass it back in the middle. That's why I stopped you. I'm like, yo. All right? Okay, man. So the police are, the group of people, the demographic of people who are most against defunding the police are people who live in poor communities, especially poor communities of color, especially poor black people in urban areas. Are like, man, you're defunding the police. Now, we ain't about that. Not here. We need the police. This stuff's very complex. But nonetheless, here we go. So it feels like, okay, it's good. I'm justified. Black Lives Matter. Let's make it happen. All right, next one. These guys. This is a militia group in Michigan. You got militia groups growing all over the United States. You're probably not paying attention to it because you're not really aware of it, and most people aren't paying attention to it. I'm paying attention to it because it's something that I study. I had a conversation with 150 police officers one time, and I asked them, hey, tell me, many of them coming from pretty even kind of rural areas where these guys are more likely to be. And I said, hey, what do you guys know about militia groups in the United States? Like, nothing. I'm like, seriously? You guys aren't paying attention to this? This is the most dangerous movement in the United States today. You guys aren't paying attention to it. They're like, nah, we're not. Because these guys don't support you. These guys will take you out just as quickly as they take me out. They don't care about you, right? It's like, no, people aren't thinking about that. These guys right here, they are organizing around their identity as people who have lost the journey toward upward mobility because society has shifted and they got left out. And these guys their parents used to have union jobs and make good money and so on. All those jobs left because we've reorganized society and these guys don't have it. A lot of them were in the military. They got out of the military. They're highly trained. And you got tens upon tens of thousands of these folks and groups all over the United States that are preparing for the great uprising. And that also includes a race war. Now, they're not all white. There's some black and brown guys in these groups as well, but they're preparing for it. Like, okay, they got a lot of guns. And you get to see these militias arising all over the U.S. Next one. And then here they are training. This is a photo, I think, from North Carolina. This guy's in training. This is a militia group, y'all. This is a group of people in the United States who have lots of guns, lots of ammo, and training from the military, and they are retraining, and they are training themselves to take over when the government collapses, a collapse of a government that they would like to see move forward as quickly as they can. That's not different than Black Lives Matter. Many people in Black Lives Matter who are saying, like, we need to transform this society from top to bottom, and so many people wanting to disband the police and just destroy the power system as it is. Well, that's what these guys want to do. So like, okay, I got it. Next one. Anyone know who this is? NFAC? That stands for Not Fucking Around Coalition. These are black militia members. They're like, hey, this is like the Black Panthers. If you know anything about the Black Panthers, this was very much a self-help group in the 60s, man. Going like, hey, you police aren't going to protect us, but we're going to protect ourselves. So these guys, these are also mostly former military members, and they are organizing as militia groups. So they can step in when society collapses into the Civil War. Yeah, they'll be stepping in too. Go to the next one. These guys right here, they're not fucking around. NFAC. Okay? Just like the white guys, they're not either. And you got your Latino guys, and you don't have any Asian groups, although you have Asians joining these groups. So like, oh, okay, hang on. Do I have your attention, right? We've got these militia groups that are growing. You don't know about them, but they're all over. Next one. But you do know about this, because a lot of them showed up on January 6th of last year. And they were going for an entire an insurrection, basically, calling for, hanging Mike Pence and busting into the Capitol. Like, this is serious. And go to the next one. And battling with the police. This is what I was asking my police colleagues. I'm like, are you guys following this? Because these people hate you. They'll take you out as quickly as they'll take me out. You're not their friend. See, if you're in like BLM, or if you have a leftist perspective, you have this idea that, all these militia groups, but the police and the militia groups are all in it together. Nah, they're not. Some of them are. There are some police in these groups. No, they're not. It's not about that. This is about waiting for the void right here in the middle, and the void that just explodes into nothingness, and then they step in and they make things happen. And that is what happens in a civil war. That's what folks are saying that we are closer and closer to, and we need to be very careful. So, next slide. So, recently people have been kind of thinking about this and polling the American people. Next decade of civil war in the U.S., very likely 14%. Like, okay, but you can't ask American people because, like, whatever, American people, nobody pays attention because they're like busy pre-gaming for football games. You know what I mean? So like, who are they? Like, I'm not going to go pre-game because I'm going to study the potential rise of militia groups in the United States and going to watch a few videos and I want to check this out so I can be prepared. It's like, nah. But nonetheless, 21% of serious Republicans and 14% of serious Democrats have this idea that, yeah, we're going to slide into a civil war. And then somewhat likely, add that to 14 and 29%, that's actually a lot of people. That's a lot of folks. So next slide. Another study I just saw, about half the U.S. expects a civil war in the next decade. And I'm like, damn, man. Seriously? So, hence, the title of this talk, I don't know, what's the title? What did I call this again? Oh, not fun and games. This is not fun and games. Like, this is not fun and games. Y'all, right? This isn't like I'm going to go out and take my gun and go shoot it in my back 40 and shoot it at tin cans or something. This is not fun and games. This is real. And so, next slide. I want to give two case studies here, and then we're going to talk about with two people from these societies. The first is the Colombia conflict. So it's a war that, kind of really started before 1964, but 64 is when the real, the serious insurgency started. And I should add 16.9, so 17% of the Colombian population, which is what, 52 million? 50 million? Yeah, 52 million. 17% of the Colombian population were victims of this war. Went on for 50 years. Victims of the war. 17%. Okay? So imagine we have a civil war in this society. Okay? You're not going to escape. So that's 17% of everybody in this classroom, that's a lot of people. That would be about this section right down here. This whole section would be about 17%. Going to be victims in somehow, right? Either death, injury, or displacement. At one point in time, Colombia had the second largest internalized displaced population in the world. Dude, it's not fun and games, man. It's not fun. And, I can be an activist about any cause. And I'm an activist in different ways, right? But what I don't realize is that my activism is turning the heat up in places. And the more I turn the heat up, the more likely it is that things start collapsing. So the Democrats start using their extremist language against Republicans. And they're like, every time they use that extremist language. When the FBI raided Trump's Mar-a-Lago, or what, I was just like, oh, shit. Like, did you have to do that? Like, did you really have to do that? Like, do you understand the implications of this? Yeah, so Trump took top secret documents, right? Like, yeah, dude, that's illegal. Highly illegal. And those of you who think they shouldn't have raided Trump's resort, I want you to ask, what would have happened if Obama had left the White House with all those top secret documents? He'd have been calling for Obama's head. Fox News every night would have been calling for Obama to be thrown in jail. So for me, I'm like, whoa, did you have to do it? Did you have to turn the heat up? Because you turn that heat up, and then we turn the heat up over here. And so, next slide. So, the FARC, right? The Armed Revolutionary Forces of Colombia, these are the FARC. These are people who felt a grave injustice, and felt an injustice from the government, and injustice from the inequality, the intense inequality in Colombian society, and so took up arms. Dude, make sure you go see him at the top, all right? Hey, by the way, if you guys leave early, remember this, because I know a lot of you want to go pregame, you got to go see Junho and Leia, okay? So, yeah, so you can leave early, but you got to go see them on your way out. Cool? We good? All right, man. So these are people just like maybe you would be or I would be that's going to join up. We're going to go join this militia. We're going to join this movement. Okay, well, that's what happened in Colombia. And then it went on for 50 years of fighting. 17% of the population. Here, look at this. By the way, go back to that slide. Doesn't that look like the slide from the NFAC or the other militia group from Michigan? Looks like the same people, right? It's the same slide. Instead of Colombians, they're just, white Americans or black Americans. Go to the next one. This looks like that slide. Remember that one from the NFAC, it looks like? Or the militia group with their camouflage fatigues walking across the field in training? Well, that's what these guys are doing. It's the same thing. It's in Colombia, but here we have it in the U.S. So the same process goes on. So here, let me show you this. Now we're going to go to Iraq. Well, this is a video that I took in Iraq. When my wife and I were there. In fact, she's in her and Basim are in this video. I don't know where they are, somewhere. But this is a mall in Iraq. I want to just start right here. Iraq is, you can go to Iraq, and the first place you can go when you're in Iraq is a really awesome shopping mall. You know what I mean? That is far cooler than any shopping mall I've been in the United States. Really modern, really cool, really like everybody goes there. They get dressed up because you go to the shopping mall dressed up and you go, especially in the summertime because it's really cool like this room and it's really hot out. And it's like, okay, nice goods from all over the world. Iraq isn't just some shithole country that's been at war forever, as somebody called it. I don't know, one of our politicians, I forget who it was. So I'm going to tell you a couple things about Iraq, but I need you to start with these images here so you have a sense of this, right? Okay, so here's, next slide. By the way, there's Santa Claus. Muslims, by the way, I've been in Middle Eastern Muslim countries over Christmas. I don't know, I've spent maybe like 4 different Christmases there, and I'm blown away by how much imagery of Christmas, Jesus in a manger and Santa Claus and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and like, God, I walk into a hotel and there's a reindeer playing a song on a trumpet or something, like, Jesus. Anyway, Mosul, so this is just some pictures of Mosul before ISIS, right? This is Mosul. It's like, this is one of the largest cities in Iraq. It's a awesome city, right? Next slide. There's a couple. Just like really, really cool. Here's a park. My friend. Here's what mosque is that?
The big mosque.
The main. It says, is that the largest mosque? Yes, it's the largest mosque. I mean, look at the river. I mean, it's a beautiful spot. Okay, and next, go to one more. Here's just a really cool black and white image. And then, next slide, then ISIS enters Mosul. And ISIS is another militancy group. So this one emerged. So those other guys in Michigan and the guys in South Carolina or North Carolina, they're all organizing around a radical Christian ideology. Understand? Probably the NFAC also is organized, maybe not the NFAC, but the other militia groups are organizing around a radical Christian ideology. So these guys are organizing around a radical Muslim ideology. ISIS doesn't make them Muslim, right? Just like if I'm Christian and I go out and I start a war and shoot people, I'm no longer Christian at that point. These guys become no longer Muslim, but nonetheless doesn't stop them from taking that title. And so they roll into Mosul, northern Iraq, but in particular Mosul. And then they take over. Okay? The radical Muslims, they take over because society is ready. It just implodes from within. Because, next slide. Wait, hang on. Did I do this? Hang on. Yeah. No, I left it out. Because things before 2003, which is when the Iraq War started, which we started because we intervened in Iraq, i.e. we invaded Iraq, and we invaded Iraq for oil because they had oil. We wanted to control the oil. So we undermined, of course we also said we wanted to depose Saddam Hussein, but fundamentally we went into this country to take their resource so that we could control their resource so we wouldn't have problems like we just recently had, which is high price of oil. So we have a military, we have the largest military in the world, and we sent our military into Iraq to say, like, hey, we're going to take this without provocation. And we did. And then Iraq breaks down. And it was a highly autocratic society, and then very quickly it goes here, we can't hold it, and then this happens. And then next slide. And then Mosul, in order to get the ISIS out of Mosul, we basically destroy the whole center of Mosul. I mean, you can't, the destruction, you just can't imagine what it looks like till you're there. And when I see this, and I think about, I go around the cities here in the United States, and I think, oh, when we have a civil war, Old Main will not be Old Main anymore, because Old Main will get bombed. The hub won't be the hub anymore, because the hub will get bombed. And then one thing after another, the bombing happens, the shooting, the killing happens, and then stuff very quickly starts to look like this. Next slide. Here's a shot. You just look, it's just destroyed. Gets rebuilt, but this is what happens in a civil war. Next slide. And here are these militia groups, like Shia militia groups now, who have just emerged all over Iraq. I mean, you can't be controlled. Just like all the groups in Colombia emerged all over Colombia and can't be controlled. And we see this in different places around the world. And so, what I want to do now is invite our two guests, Haitham and Yuli. Yeah. You can stand. It's best if you sit on the table. You're more. So Haitham, say hey. How'd you get here, by the way? Well, first, who are you? Where are you from? And how'd you get here?
Okay.
Why are you here?
Why I'm here? Okay.
Wait.
Hi, this is me, Haitham. I'm from Mosul, which unfortunately, before like few minutes, you already saw some pictures of Mosul during the liberation of Mosul. I have been an foundation facilitation team and advanced facilitator and wording conversation, and I'm here for tomorrow's summit of the First Alumni Summit and wording conversation. And I'm so happy to be here with you all. I'm so excited. It is a unique opportunity to someone from Mosul can travel to US, but thanks for wording conversation and PNC to make my dream happen, because nowadays people from Iraq and especially from Mosul, they can't travel to Europe or US. So by the assistance of the staff of Penn State University, I'm here to attend in person and to meet my all co-facilitators, tech team, and the brilliant staff. And I'm so happy to see you here all. And thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Haitham. And Julie, yeah, so you've been in 119 before. Yeah. Okay, so let me start with Julie, with you. So Julie is a sociologist. She's studied sociology in Colombia, which means she's a radical. She was trained to be a radical leftist.
Was trained, but life changed me.
Yeah, the strain of life. Yeah. So, can you talk a little bit about what I said, what I talked about, the collapse and the violence, and how that reflects what Colombia has experienced? Like, how do you relate to that?
Well, first thing that I have to say is I'm just bringing here my view as a Colombian. I'm not speaking from every Colombian, or I'm not having the voice for every person in my country. Lucky me and my family, we haven't been victims of the conflict, like directly.
Yeah.
But as a society, we have been damaged in several ways, because me and my parents and pretty much my grandparents, we haven't known a country without conflict. It's really hard to realize that you were part of at some point, just because you were not involved. And that makes you part at the same time.
Yeah.
But actually, people who had like the most impacts and were like really suffering that period of conflict were mostly in the countryside and other regions rather than Bogota. And I'm not saying that people in Bogota, which is the capital city, didn't have like an impact or so, but it was like pretty much other people.
You know, like when Lori and I were there one time, there was the bombing at the mall, right near our house.
In a mall.
In Andina.
Yeah, in a mall.
Remember that? Yeah.
It's just hard to think. We are hopeless trying to think a country without conflict. And despite there's a lot of people suffering around that, there's a lot of blindness with the conflict from many other people. It's like if you talk with someone from the countryside, you find one type of country, and if you talk with people from other areas and other low incomes and different social economic status or so, you can find another country, like two different perspectives. So we are very divided. In this moment, Colombia just elected the first left-wing government in its history. And many people is thinking that we are becoming a national guerrilla again or so, but it's not true. But at the end, it's just a matter of power. Like people in power, war is really convenient for people in power because they can keep us just fighting against each other for something that we really don't understand.
And I think about these groups here in the United States who, you know, between them and the government and the military and the police and everyone who's just battling it out, and sometimes they just join and have no idea what even they're fighting for. Like people who are, you know, wherever it is, I mean, most people just have no thoughts about it. You and I were listening to, remember that when we were listening to the live stream of the Truth Commission? And some people were telling their stories. I mean, could you just say something about the pain and the heartache that it's real? This isn't a Hollywood movie. It's real people's lives. I mean, could you just kind of help us to see that a little?
I'm related to those kind of stories and testimonies from people because I read it and I have heard people telling me about it, but not directly like suffering that. I used to work with people in displacement or so, but it's not always, you can hear, you can read, and you can just maybe see some pictures of things, but you never experience that in your real body until you really have to experience that. So recently, I think it's an English version if you want to know more about it, in the Comisión de la Verdad, which is Commission of the Truth. It was a commission that was made after the peace agreement with the FARC guerrilla. They made a report. They went for 3 years across the country, listening to people's testimony and trying to find what happened, what were the kind of things that people suffered there, like people were raped, displaced, burned. I mean, I don't know how to say those kind of horrible things in English, but they were really damaged, not just physically, but mentally, sexually, and in our society was damaged by that. So people, this is real. So you don't want to have this in your own society. This is real. This is real, seeing people without parents, without children. There are many people disappeared right now. There's an entire commission trying to find where are they, because there's a large, I can't have the name in my mind, but I think it's about like 3,000 or so people disappeared because of the conflict. And it's so hard when you can find your relatives and you don't know where they are, and maybe they give you some bones and you have to bury them thinking they are, but they're not. And everything is damaged because of that. Like, if a society can just live without this inner conflict, you can study properly, you can eat properly, you can have access to basic needs. And I'm talking about the people who suffer that in the countryside. So there's a lot of things that are real. It's not just that picture, it's not just what you can see in the news. You can see people in the streets begging for food, asking you for money. Of course, crime in big cities start to increase because people who was displaced from the countryside, they came to the big cities trying to find a way to survive. And there's a lot of organizations that try to help them, but if we don't go to the truth, we just can't solve that. So yeah, the suffering is real.
Okay, so final thing that I want to hear you to comment on, and then we'll go to Haitham. The thing that, first off, these are all Christians, right? Colombia is a Christian nation. So when you have this idea of like Muslims do this, Christians don't do this, there are wars and dastardly destruction all over the world done by Christians. So let's be really clear here. But the other side is, what really strikes me is that, you remember when we had a conversation with the paramilitaries, we had a dialogue with paramilitaries and FARC guerrillas. So we had a dialogue one time in Colombia. Lori and Yuli facilitated, my wife and Julie facilitated. But what was really striking is that, like, the people on the left were so sure that they were right, and it was okay for them to kill other people on the left because they are on the right, on the other side, because they were right, they were justified. And the people on the left were so sure that they could kill people on the right. It's okay because they're wrong and we're right. And one after another, and it didn't matter who they were able to justify their actions in committing these heinous crimes. And when I think about the United States and I think about the rhetoric that gets ramped up from the left wing and the right wing, and everybody feels justified to do that. And so that's the thing that really struck me listening to the Truth Commission reports, but from the right wing and the left wing. Do you have just a quick thought on that? That I know we've talked about this, right? That
I think when people is officially under war, they feel that they're allowed to do whatever they want because they're officially under war. So if you start calling that things like we are in conflict, we need to fight against others, you start to repeat that you are in conflict and this is a war, that becomes true. And once you are under war or under that conflict, you feel that you are allowed to eliminate the other part, because you are under this umbrella that gives you the power to finish other people's lives. So that's the problem. That's why we had this peace agreement in 2016, but we still have another problems. We were paying attention too much about the guerrilla problem. And when we had this peace agreement, we realized it's not about guerrilla, it's about poverty, corruption, it's about power relations between classes, inequity, a lot of things that we never paid attention because we were paying attention to that guerrilla against the government thing.
Kind of like here, that people, we're not paying attention to what's actually really happening.
And we should pay attention in those things that are not becoming from the news or the people in power, because they're very happy to having us just fighting because of them and not paying attention in our daily lives.
And I think, final comment here, what's also really striking is how it's like everybody can justify, people on the far left who want to shut down free speech. It's really important that they get to say what they want to say, but they then suddenly want to shut down the ability of someone else to say it. And I'm like, oh my God, right? Well, it doesn't take much for people on the left who are all about peace and justice to suddenly be supporting killing those other people. I'm like, wait, where was your peace and justice? Where did that go? You know, like, but people lose that. Haitham, thanks, Julie. Haitham, how is it to live among so much instability? Like what? Like, so, you know, I painted a picture a little bit about this. Okay, in the United States, we get to an instability. Nobody trusts the government. Nobody trusts, you know, when we don't trust anything, like, what's it like to live in that space?
Okay, before responding to this question, I would like to ask you all like one question, because Dr. Sam의 came across a very important point when he mentioned in his slides a civil war. So does anyone of you here want to fight each other and kill each other? Of course no. That's what is happening nowadays in Iraq and leads to instability. So being in an unstable situation, and we're living in any country around the world, it's just like living in a chaos, okay? So people of Iraq, from north to south of Iraq, we are not living in stable situations because we distrust each other nowadays. What is happening in Mosul and some cities of Iraq when ISIS invade Mosul, and when they did that, first they said that we are here to liberate you. And some people, unfortunately, they believe that they came here to liberate us from what's already having from our government. So they feel that, well, finally someone will come and give us our rights. And a lot of people thought that. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so a lot of people thought they came really to liberate them, but after days, they show the real face of how the militias can be. So they start first closing everything to people. They are trying to take their rights. And if you were before having like 50% of your rights from the government, and now they have nothing because they took everything from the people. So every one of us were just thinking of how to live this day, and we were not thinking of if we are able to live the next day. Because if you are living like the day that you're living in, so you are doing something, okay? So they came in the word of liberation, but they really came for destruction, for killing people, and they came to take your rights. No one, believe me, wants you to live a stable life, unless you and your family and close friends. Other people, they are claiming that they are here because they want you and to provide you with better life than the one you have. So don't believe them, because people of Mosul, they were deceived by ISIS, okay, when they told them that we will get you. So that's why I'm calling every one of you, if you're like from US or any country that you're representing here, don't drag to this trap, because the government, whatever the government is providing you, is the best solution for you, because you know now what you are living, but believe me, tomorrow you will not know that how you will live. And I don't...
You said last night, just on that, last night you said something that was really prescient, and something I've heard people who have gone through a civil war in countries around the world say many times. It's like, you think it's going to get better.
Yes, I'm coming across this point.
Yeah.
So like when you thinking of the civil war or anything that, or anyone that's calling that we are gonna here to give you the better life, if you think that this really will happen, and I will tell you just like there are no guarantees that you will have a better life. People of Iraq in general and Mosul in particular, we wish. Do you know that all of us, we had this word when we say, but I wish or we wish. We don't want to come across such a word. It's really just a word which is wish, but it has a lot of things inside. There are many interpretations to people of Iraq and the word that I wish, because we weren't know that we will have a better life, and that's why we believe them, okay? But now we keep saying that I wish that if I come back to 2014, I wish if I come back to 2010, and
In 2002.
yeah, no, I'm just back in the time.
Yeah.
And luckily, the whole people of Iraq, they wish if we come back 2002, as you
Yeah,
just mentioned.
yeah.
Because in 2002, when U.S. Army invaded Iraq, okay, they said that we're here to liberate you. And once they came and inside Iraq, they took everything and they said to the Iraqis, you have now to deal with your own situations, okay? So whatever is happening nowadays in Iraq, so the Iraqis, they are responsible for all this stuff and things because they believe someone just told them that we are here for a better life to you, and we don't have any guarantee, so never believe such things.
Okay, thanks. Very really important words. So I want to go back to something that you said. You asked people like, hey, are you ready to go fight and kill other people who think differently than you? Well, nobody is. And Iraqis weren't. Look, you know, if you don't know, I'm going to just say something here, right? If you don't have an experience with Arab culture, right? Arab culture is a culture that is just profoundly community-based, profoundly family-based, profoundly non-violent. Recently, we see violence in the Arab world because that's just where violence emerged. Historically, the violence was in Europe. Profoundly violent societies. We don't see this, okay? But now we're seeing violence in a place like Iraq, right? But what happened? Like, if you would have asked Iraqis in 2001, hey, are you ready to go kill your neighbor? Do you want to do that? Every Iraqi would have said, like, no, I'm not doing that. But you did. And so when I think about these folks here, I think, yeah, they all say that now. But when stuff collapses, you know, that starts to change.
Yeah, this is the purpose of my question. As you just mentioned that when we were like in 2001 or 2 that, are you going to kill each other? Are you ready to do that? Of course, we say, hell no, that we don't want to do that. But the purpose from my question is that because you will be forced to protect yourselves. Okay, so when you're living in a chaos and the government will be collapsed and no one is going to protect you, you have to protect yourself. And how that you have to protect yourself is against like each other, against parties, militias, or any groups. So nowadays, Iraqis, they were forced to face each other. And unfortunately, we lost the trust between people of Iraq. And I do love to see you all as you here sitting one next to each other and trust each other. I want that these moments of peace to last forever, here or everywhere too. So that's why I don't recommend any one of you to think at least for 1 second about if we are going to involve in civil war or any kind of these self-liberations, because the consequences is really bad.
I think about all these militia groups, and I think about, and again, you know, you all have a lot of militia groups in Iraq right now in particular. You didn't used to have them, but you have them now. We didn't used to have them, and they're growing, you know, every week. I mean, they're growing and growing, right? And they are preparing for a war, and they're amassing weaponry, and they're training, and they're preparing, and it's all happening behind the scenes just because you don't see it. And I think how quickly, how easily, or how susceptible Americans would be, just like how susceptible Iraqis were, to a different kind of message that makes sense. Like, you know, all the folks that were on that are, these groups that I showed you the photos of, the folks that were on the Capitol on January 6th, it just makes sense to go do that. The far left, the far right, it doesn't matter. And I think that's what scares me the most. When and it scares me, similar to Colombia, right? Yeah. Do you have something?
I don't know, how do you say in English, indignación?
Indignation.
Indignation. I think that's the new thing that it's the opportunity for manipulation. Everyone feels entitled to feel indignated, should be that word. And if you work with that feeling of indignation, it's easily to just escalate that feeling to the point that you feel that you have the right to do something against others just because you feel mad about something.
Yeah, you feel mad. And you feel like you have been somehow left behind, right? So we see this, Haitham, also in Iraq, right? People that are just, that you just at some point just get angry. Like all these people say like on, say, BLM protests, right? Or on the Capitol Mall, or the right wing, the left wing. There's people just angry. And we say like, what are you angry about? We're just angry. Like, well, what are you angry about? Like, what are you really angry about? And then people can come up with something, right? I'm angry that they took our government away. Who is they? I'm angry that this entire system is racist. Like, who's the entire system? You're part of the entire system. I'm just angry at all the police. Do you know any police? Have you ever talked to police? Have you ever had a conversation with a single police officer to sit down and say, tell me about your life. Do you have any understanding of what it's like to be a police officer in the United States? It's like, no, I've never talked to the police. I'm like, well, before you go out and start demanding things of the police and hating the police and claiming that the police are, the greatest evil since white bread, then why don't you just have a conversation with somebody? But we don't do that, and then we slide into the kind of war that you see. By the way, I want to see if anybody has a question they would like to, or who has a question they'd like to ask. But the thing that we talked about last night, when I think about Balkanization, and I think like the Shia and Sunni divide, right? When you were a child, you never talked about Sunnis and Shias, right?
Yeah, when I was, let me say that until like when I was 18 years old, I never knew that there are two different types of Muslim. They are like Sunni and Shia. But after the war, like even now, immediately, and 3-4 years, I start here. There are two categories of Muslim. They are Sunni and Shia, and I wasn't happy with that. I wasn't, because I do really prefer that I'm like only called a Muslim. Okay, I have my own beliefs, but don't tell me that being a Muslim, it has like Sunni and Shia, and I don't know, maybe there are more than this, but luckily they only told us there is a Sunni and Shia. So I don't want to feel like I'm different or the Shia is different from me, because I prefer to be Iraqi. I prefer to be Iraqi from Mosul. I'm not preferring to be like Muslim Sunni, because they're implementing kind of hatred between us. Because Shia, they would like to show themselves they are better than us. And we would like to show them that it's the same, that Sunni, they are better from them.
So, you have like 1,400 years of Sunni and Shia. Like there's a little bit of conflict, but like, okay, mostly you're saying you were 18 years old before you even knew.
Yeah.
And within 20 years, suddenly we have Sunnis killing Shia, Shia killing Sunnis. And like, where did that happen in 20 years? So it's kind of like in Christianity, today we don't have this deep hatred of Catholics and Protestants, but for centuries it's Catholics and Protestants. In fact, the entire civil war in Northern Ireland is based on Catholics and Protestants hating each other, which just came out of nowhere. So if I think about that, I think like, oh, well, what are you all going to be taught to hate each other on? What's it going to be? That suddenly, you will I didn't. Well, when I was in Penn State, I didn't hate other Penn Staters because they were X. But now, 15 years later, I do, and I'm ready to pick up a gun and go kill them. So nobody would have. You wouldn't have predicted that when you were 18. Hey, does anybody have a question they would like to ask either Yuli or Haitham? He's from Tunisia, by the way, but don't hold it against him. All right.
So, for Haitham, do people in your country kind of say, I wish we were back into the times where it was a dictatorship? Because that's exactly what people in my country are saying. Like, I wish.
It's not actually they wish that they come back to 2002. But whenever something bad happen, whenever we have a civil war or like a war that happens in any city of Iraq, that we wish to forget this war and go back to, for example, if something happened last in 2014, so we wish if we were in 2013, because 2013 were better to Muslim people from 2014. So that's the point that you will regret to the moment that you didn't like it now or in the future, but you will wish one time to back to this point.
Yeah.
So you mentioned 2014, wish we were back there, and I heard like Professor Sam that said that civil wars can happen just like that. How fast, like when something like erupted, did it radically change your city, radically change your life?
Yeah, because in Tunisia it happened like that.
Yeah, in 2011.
Right, for you, yeah.
Well, actually, before it happened like that, it's already well planned.
Yeah.
Okay, this photo that Dr. Sam showed us it means that they are preparing for something. So they already were preparing for something when it's the time. So that's why it's happened just like a flash. And like we weren't like ready, or it's not our responsibility as citizens of Iraq. But we were like government involvement and such a thing, such a chaos, and the militias, all these parties. That's why it's happened like suddenly.
Yeah. Anybody else have a final quick question? Yes, man. Wait, hang on. Okay, last question, and then we'll have an answer, and then you can get on to your pregame.
I have a question for Yuli. So you said that in Colombia we shouldn't focus on the guerrilleros, but then what should we be looking into?
Can you repeat the question aloud, please?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
I can
sorry.
hear.
Say it in Spanish. No, está bien, está bien.
Decías que no podemos como que mirar a los guerrilleros y como que enfocarnos en eso, pero ¿en qué nos enfocamos entonces? ¿Cómo vamos a revolucionar el problema en Colombia?
Do you need a translator?
No, I understand. I think the group.
No, it's good.
Yeah,
You
okay.
can. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, we were paying attention. Okay. Conspiration against what I'm saying. We were paying too much attention of the guerrilla as the problem, not the result of other many problems. So we were thinking that if we just finish the guerrilla, every problem in Colombia will be solved.
Yeah.
And we ended up, we signed the peace agreement in 2016, and guess what? We still have a lot of problems. So we should pay attention to poverty, corruption, narco-traffic, a lot of things that we have in our society, instead of just blaming one group for that.
Okay, hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.